Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Foundr Podcast. Today we're joined by Camille Moore, the creative force behind some of the most iconic brand transformations on the internet right now. She's known as the internet's favorite creative director. She's built a reputation for helping founders go from forgettable to unforgettable with brand strategies that actually move the needle. So in this episode, it's a branding masterclass. She breaks down exactly what makes a good brand versus a great brand, why e-commerce founders are getting social media completely wrong and what you need to be doing, how to make sure your visuals, your message, your customer experience all work together like a symphony. And also you're gonna learn why building founder-led brands isn't just smart, it's a non-negotiable right now. So if you've ever struggled to stand out online, building your brand, this is the ultimate crash course in branding that actually builds trust, drives conversion, drives sales, and scales your business. All right, let's get into it.
Hear the stories, learn the proven methods, and accelerate your growth and future through entrepreneurship. Welcome to the Foundr Podcast with Nathan Chan.
Okay, well, we are here with the internet's favorite creative director, and I've got a question for you. You've said, if I asked 1,000 people what a brand is, I get 1,000 different answers. So what's the simplest but most overlooked way to define a brand?
The simplest way to define a brand is that it's like a symphony. It's a collection of different pieces and parts that work together as a collective whole. And that's what most business owners miss when it comes to branding, is that they focus on the logo or on the website, or they're trying to trace a trend because they want to go viral, and they don't realize that every single aspect of their business, their experience, how their employees show up is all what makes the brand. So I like the example of a symphony, because when you go to see a show, right? If 10 of us went to go see a show, when they do their final applaud and they bow and they leave and we all look at each other, more or less, we're all going to say that was awesome or something was wrong. Right? And you can't quite put your finger on it at that level, because it's not like you had a rogue cellist or like someone stood up and did like a solo and it was bad. It's kind of how all of the pieces work together. And that's often what makes or breaks a brand. It's not, that it's such an amazing experience, but their socials are off. It's more that they don't understand the role of how those pieces work together.
So hearing it as a symphony, how can like early stage founders, especially in the e-com space, what does that mean to like build a brand with trust from day one and build something solid? Obviously it takes time, but from your perspective, how can people start? What are the things to start with?
Well, the best place to start is actually on the foundations, which is really what the course that we did together at Foundr. It's why it's so important, because people get so excited. They start dropping the buzzwords, right? Like, what is the ecom? What is the slider going to look like? What is the UGC that we're going to place? Like, they start looking at more of this, like the smaller pieces to it than what are you trying to achieve? Like, what is the goal? Who are you trying to speak to? What are their pain points? What is trying to clearly identify who is your customer? Like, where do they spend? What are their issues? What is your point of view as a brand going into the market? Like, why are you going into the market and what makes you different? If you are obsessed with answering those questions, your brand starts to make a lot more sense. So a lot of the people that come across my desk, they're like, I want to create a beauty brand. And they're like having developers like mock up their website, and they're trying to like pull images off the site, but they're not asking the hard questions. Like, who are you wanting to sell to, and what are their pain points? What makes you different? So if you start there and really identify and spend the time in speaking, then instead of just doing the exciting, pretty stuff, that's how you start to build the trust and credibility, because you're speaking to and you're showing visuals that connect with that person.
Yeah, you said something really interesting that I want to pull out, and it was that what makes you different. So we have an incredible community at Foundr, and I think that's something people really struggle with, but it is so key to getting cut through. Like when I look at our successful students in our community, like it's clear, like their products are different and it is
Yes.
clear. But then sometimes that's something that people get caught up with as well because they want to be so different. It's actually hard to bring the product to life. You know, it has to be so unique. Like, how do you find that balance?
Well, that's why you have to ask the questions properly, right? Like if you're a founder coming into the space, why are you deciding to launch this product? Like what problem or what compelled you to act? And if it doesn't have a clear so what and a clear impact statement, the random strangers on the street aren't going to stop what they're doing. They're going to stop buying from Tide to buy from you unless it's like it speaks to a core pain point, right? Whether it's price, whether it's friction, whether it's a gap in the market, whether it's consumer insights has changed. Like maybe you're speaking to more of a clean audience. Maybe you're speaking to an audience that has young children. Like what do they care about? And once you have that identified, that's how you can figure out what is your, like, there's a reason why you're doing what you're doing. And it's often, maybe it was that you had an allergy or a life moment or something that compelled you, or maybe you just didn't feel that there was something in the market that was quite good enough. But often those pieces, like those friction points, those compelling moments is where the differentiator is sitting.
Hey Foundr fam, I want to take a quick break from the conversation to talk to you about something super exciting. We're officially partnered with Omnisend, the email marketing and SMS platform built specifically for e-commerce founders. We've been recommending Omnisend to Foundr students for a while now because it just works. Whether you're launching your first store or you're scaling to 7 figures, it really helps you automate your marketing and get real results. Did you know on average, Omnisend customers make $68 for every $1 they spend, which is an insanely good return on investment. And because you're part of the Foundr community, you get 50% off your first 3 months with the code FOUNDR50. Just head to omnisend.com/founder without the E to get started. All right, now let's jump back into the show. Yeah, I see. So you break branding like it into 3 tiers. There's a brand, a good brand, and a great brand.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk more about that and really how founders can move up a level. And can you give us some examples? Yeah.
So the reason why I came up with the 3 different levels of a brand was truthfully, I was meeting with well-intentioned small business owners, but they were delusional in who their competitors were. And the 3 levels is actually more helpful than hurtful. Like it's not designed to, so the story of how this came to be is I was working with this chain, one of the largest franchises in Canada, and they're in a specific food category. And I was helping them rebrand. They had over 500 locations. And I said, okay, well, who is your competitor? And they said the proverbial Chipotle. Like Chipotle was their competitor that has 30,000 locations, that's been in business for 30 years, that is owned by McDonald's, that is an absolute behemoth. And even at 500 stores, the reason why they were retaining me is that because they had no brand awareness, nobody knew who they were. And the reason why they had grown to such a large footprint is because their franchising opportunity looked so attractive. And I'd heard so many businesses say, I'm going to be the next Uber of X, when really they weren't prepared. Like they really weren't a disruptor. They weren't really coming in to change the industry. There was maybe a technological piece that made them like slightly more advanced, but to call yourself an Uber of X or that Chipotle is your competitor, it's misaligned to how you need to be thinking and launching into market. So it's difficult when I get clients that say, oh, Rode did this or Summer Fridays did this, so therefore I'm thinking I need to do X. And I'm like, well, they're also doing like $100 million in sales per year. Like they can justify doing things at a different rate and spend on earned media value, which you can't at this stage. So to go back to it, a brand, the first level of a brand is you exist. So this is like a local coffee shop. This is someone where there's not really consistency in branding. They have a business, but you're not going to them because of their branding. It's often convenience. So the example that I like to give is here near my office, there's a smoothie shop. The signage makes no sense. There's no consistency to the health food shop. They basically sell ice cream, milkshakes, and then they claim to be a health food store. They call themselves a Clean Earth. And I don't go to them because they're the best. I go to them because they're down the street. So that's the first level of a brand. And that's where most brand owners sit. So the next level is a good brand. And this is where the majority of small businesses and medium-sized businesses spend their entirety of their branding lives. So a good brand is defined by having a good product. So the product is good on its own. It has a good story. So it has the reason why you came to market or what you do has a good story to it. You have a good experience. So you focused on the touch points, you understand Google reviews, like you understand that experience matters. And then the fourth pillar is you're consistent. You have consistency. Because it doesn't matter how good your product is or how good your story is or how good your experience is. Because if you're not consistent, you lose brand trust. So that's the middle level of a brand. That's a good brand. And that's where a lot of you as founder-based businesses, you'll want to aim to be a good brand because that's a great place to be. You're consistent in your visuals, you show up consistently in your message, and you're growing. The good brand category has a spectrum, right? So from a good brand could be a brand that's just launched to a brand that's been in business for 45 years, but isn't quite as obsessed with those four pillars. So their product isn't great, their story isn't fantastic, their experience isn't through the roof, and they're not absolutely obsessed with consistency, right? So the third pillar, that last option, is a great brand. And this is the Chipotles. This is the IKEAs. This is the Four Seasons. This is the mecca of branding. And the fourth variable on top of not being good, but being great is time, because you need the variable of time. You need to be in market for 20, 30, 40 years to perfect your systems, to have tried and failed, to have understood your customer, and every decision you make, be obsessed with executing those four pillars in order to get there. So the examples and the reason why I like for the great brand is it doesn't have to be luxury. Like to be great, you don't have to be Four Seasons. You can be an IKEA, you can be a Walmart, but these brands, there's a clear promise and relationship that you get every single time, and that's what makes them great. If we were to both close our eyes and I said, imagine the Nike hotel, you and I would probably picture a very similar hotel. If we said the Foundr Hotel, we would picture probably a similar hotel. If you asked yourself to close your eyes and say, what would your business's hotel be? If it's not 100% clear, like a Walmart hotel or a Lululemon hotel or a Nike hotel, you're not a great brand yet. You're in the good brand or a brand status.
Yeah, I love the way that you've broken it down, and you got me thinking, right? Like when I think about building brands, I've only built two companies, right? I built Foundr and this e-commerce brand, Healthish, and I learned from this guy. His name's Sean. I forget his last name, but he was behind a lot of big e-com brands, and he said to me, I interviewed him a long time ago, and he said to me, Nathan, there's three really key components that I bring to every single brand that I create. The first, obviously, is great product, which you talked about. The second is great design, look and feel. And then the last one was ambassadors. I need to have ambassadors, people behind the brand that we can align with and showcase. And I took that, like this was early days Found, like in the first year or two, probably close to first year, I took that, and that's always sat with me. Like I'm always like product is everything. And then I'm massive on design. I think design is how it looks, but it also is how it makes people feel. But then lastly
Totally.
is ambassadors. I'm curious around ambassadors because that is a key component. You spoke about road, right? Like
Yeah.
clearly, like, so where does ambassadors fall into kind of the branding sphere, building trust, getting cut through, especially for new brands?
Oh my gosh, it's huge. And this is where social media has really become the biggest living extension of your brand, especially for e-com, because you predominantly don't have brick and mortar. So your brand effectively lives online. So when it comes to like building a community, building a tribe, having evangelists, which is basically three different ways of saying what you just said, you have to understand two things. One is the power and importance of having a founder-led brand. So the big thing is, to have evangelists, they have to buy into something. And in the modern age, it's often buying into someone, right? Like getting behind what someone believes in. So the biggest problem is that 30 years ago, faceless brands were the thing because the Internet of Things didn't exist. So what these big behemoth businesses would do is they would tap into celebrities, into models, into what people could only have relationships with at that time at a grand scale. So if they hired Cindy Crawford to be the model of the brand new red lipstick for CoverGirl, enough of that target market masses knew who she was and felt connected in order to buy that product. In today's day, we don't feel connected to celebrities because we never knew them, and we can now know people on Instagram and TikTok in a much more intimate way than this like PR placement of, J-Lo showing up on a cover. Like, we never knew these people, and they were like highly polished PR kind of dolls that we never really could see into their life. All we could see is what the tabloids would tell us. So when it comes to building a tribe and evangelists, that's why having a founder-led brand is not a buzzword, but it's the way to be in today's age, because people can't tell that you're different, or they can't connect with you if you're not standing on the roof of your brand and shouting from the rooftops of why you're different and why you're special. And I had a call this past week with the biggest filter brand, like biggest filter hair and beauty brand. And they were number one in the market. They have the most superior product. They've spent all this money doing these tests in these labs. And she's losing to brands that have better packaging when she has a superior product, because all of these tests and these studies she's paid for, nobody's reading them if she as the founder is not showing up, and is because like we buy from people, we don't buy from flat graphics, right? So that's number one. Number two is understanding the role in which social media plays. So a big thing I talk about is inner circle versus outer circle content. So when you're building a brand, you need to understand the difference of creating awareness, doing things that are more viral, more break the news, that speak to a larger audience. But then you also need to be doing stuff that's more inner circle. So that's building the community, investing in the tribe. So I'm going to give you a quick analogy. So I use this analogy for two different things: for how to create content that connects, but how to basically also bring community members into your brand vibe. So imagine you're a bus driver and you are going down a small town main road, and you as a bus driver, you're going to the big city, you're going to New York. So you need to let people know that are in this town, that are on the road, on the street, that the bus is coming. It's the only bus for this week, and it's going to New York. And if they want to get to New York, the time is now in order to get on the bus. Basically, what you want to do is you want to have your message get people to stop what they're doing and to see that the bus is coming. That is your first goal. Your second goal is to get people to decide to come to the bus stop and to get on the bus, because that's when they're now moving from they've seen your brand to they're now clicking on your page, they're now clicking on your website, they're interested in where your bus is going, they're going to come check it out, see how much the fare is, see how long the ride is, they're interested in coming on. But then the third hurdle that you have to overcome is you want to keep them on the bus and you want them to be with you on your journey. So that's where, when it comes to, you have to create content and think in your brand in terms of, how do I keep people to come on the bus and to go with me where I want to go? And the reason why I like, you have to compel them to want to move and go with you. So it's not just like, you got to build an evangelist, you got to build the tribe. You have to give so much value away. You have to tell them, look, I'm going to take you to New York for free, but you got to get on this bus and you got to stay on for the 14-hour trip. And that's what you've done with Foundr, right? People love Foundr because Foundr gives away so much value. They come on the bus, they stay on your bus, they're evangelists for the trip. Though the trip's amazing, you got to come. It's got air conditioning in here. We got flat screen TVs. It's amazing. And that's what builds your brand, so that you end up becoming a great brand.
Yeah, I see. And so when it comes to there's a lot I want to unpack here as well. We talked about personal brand. This is massive. I agree with you. It's all about founder-led content. Before we started shooting, this is something I'm doubling down on. I haven't even told you this. So we spoke late last year, and I said, oh, I'm going to start working on my personal brand. I'd love to get your feedback. I'm starting now. And I'm like, I'm kicking myself I didn't do this like 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago when I was like early days founder. Oh my God. Like Foundr would be a totally different business. Like, but it'd be like it'd be insane, right? Like I wish I had documented everything. People can kind of just put the pieces together. I wish I shared more. So I want to touch on the personal branding piece. What do founders do though, if we know it's important, right? And we talk about, ambassadors, you have to be your number one ambassador for your brand. That's really key these days. How can founders start? Because for many, it's so scary pulling out the camera. What do you say? How do you take people on the journey? Wanting to make it perfect. Like that's a big sticking point, even for myself. Like that's what held me back. Like for a long time, I didn't know what to do. Like it's not that I didn't know what to do. I was scared of what other people would think of me.
Totally. Well, I'm gonna challenge first, and then I'm gonna soften it by bringing in areas to explore that make it easier. But the first thing is it is hard. And it is hard. It is hard for everyone. It is hard for people that have scaled multi-7-figure businesses. It is hard for me. I went to school for the performing arts. I hated creating content. I felt that performing on stage, performing to a camera, it was I even did some like on stage work. It was the hardest transition because I wasn't reading a script. I had to like talk to it was like you were sitting in front of me. Like it was entirely different. It sucks. But the reason why it sucks is why it's worth doing, because that is the way to get ahead, because it sucks for everybody. So the sooner you bite the bullet, you start doing it, the faster you can get ahead and the sooner you are future-proof. Like we are facing an age of AI avatars. There is going to be an entire swath of fake businesses that are popping up on Instagram with AI avatars but it's not to scare you, it's to remind you that people buy from people. But you have to start before there's more, because the algorithm is only going to become flooded and there's a learning period. And that's the reality, is that you're going to suck in the beginning. It's going to be uncomfortable in the beginning. But if you want to do anything great, you have to work through that period of uncomfortability, and you have to continue to reinvent and push yourself. Like I had a conversation with a client, and she's very to the point. She's probably my favorite client. She says things as they are and she doesn't hold anything back. And she said, Camille, I wouldn't hire you based on your content now. But basically she wouldn't have hired me based on the stuff that I was posting at that current time. And the content really wasn't performing as well. My sales had been down. She wasn't wrong, but it was what I had to hear. And it was not convenient to hear as a business owner. That was in autopilot. That was like, it was already work to do it. But to hear that I needed to change and to reinvent was like the worst thing to hear. But it's what you need to be prepared as a founder, is that this piece of it sucks, but it's why being a founder isn't for the faint of heart. It's never been easier to open a Shopify account. It's never been easier to get AI generated graphics. Like the piece that you have to bite the bullet on is the personal branding. Now, the second piece to it before I soften it is the other thing is the reason why it's hard is because social media is so easy to consume. So we went to school and we learned math, and we go to school and we learn science and philosophy, and we're tested on it. We read the textbooks and we study. But we don't study social media. Like we haven't gone to school for social media. So when you're a business owner, social media is your number one vital asset. And it's often going to the most underqualified person in the business. And that's where I give the biggest criticism to these huge brands that hire me, is these massive companies come to me. They're like, Camille, we're shadow banned. And I take 10 seconds. I'm like, no, you're not shadow banned. Your content sucks. And I'm like, who's doing your content? He's like, we've got these great interns. They just graduated from Cornell. They're 21, 22, and 24. And I'm like, you are a multinational company. You have an over $1 billion revenue per year, and interns are doing your Instagram and your TikTok. People who are not paid at the company are running your socials, and you're paying me money, and you're like, something's not working here. And I'm like, I just feel like it becomes business therapy, because people think that they're too old. They think that they don't get it. They don't spend time on socials, and they just hope that one day it's going to hit them on their head that they're going to start to understand it. The people who get it are the people that study, obsess, save, come back. The evolution in where I started creating content to where I am now was not linear. It didn't happen overnight. It's not because I am 30. It's because I spent an obsessive amount of time saying, this is what's going to change my life, and I have to study this. So the biggest thing I tell people is like study content. So one of the things I get people to do, I call it the 10 by 10 rule. And basically you go and you take, and this is a good thing for you too to do, Nate. So you take 10 people that you respect online, people that you see as competitors, or just content that you like, people's pages you keep coming back to. And for all 10 of them, I get you to go through each of their posts and study their top 10 performing pieces of content. So look for the 10 that got the most engagement, the most views. Engagement can be a separate than a views. Look for what performed the best and write down the post and save the post. Within each of those posts, I want you to steal like an artist. Take the Austin Kleon approach. Don't copy it. Steal like an artist. What is it about that piece of content that did well? What was the hook? What was the visual hook? What was the audio hook? What was the caption? What happened in the video? How fast was the video? What was the middle point? What was the rehook, the subject, and the value, and the call to action? Once you break all of that down, you are now starting to think about socials like you are in school, and it becomes less overwhelming. Now, if camera is not for you, this is also why I want you to do the 10 by 10 analysis, because you can find 10 accounts that maybe they do voiceovers, maybe they do swipe throughs. I've seen you do a lot of swipe throughs for your personal brand. Maybe they're doing montages, or maybe they're getting somebody else to film it, or maybe they're sitting down and they're doing curated 10 interviews, or they have employees doing EGC and they pop in. Whatever you find that performs on those 10 accounts is what gives you the permission to try and test things out.
Yeah, this is a brilliant strategy and it works. It's like, it is exactly what like
success leaves clues.
Yeah, 100%. It's what I've always done. That's where I got the swipe throughs from, right? Like I can see certain carousels, I can see certain hooks, like, and you just keep testing. The reason I like the carousels is I can train AI to keep getting them better and better and better. I can do it with the videos, but I find video is a bit more work, but we're getting there. One step at a time. But yeah, that's gold. So, all right. So that's the personal brand piece, ambassadors. Talk me through, I guess you talk about having the customer as the hero of your brand and this idea of story brand. Talk me through that, because I remember when we last spoke, I thought this was really, really powerful.
Well, what the biggest thing that well-intentioned business owners miss is that they're shouting at the customer instead of guiding them on their way. So the big thing is that everyone is living their own lives. They are the number one character in their own life, and they're navigating through time and space in a way of giving themselves more comfort, less friction, and less pain. So oftentimes your product is a solution to a problem that they have, or should be positioned as a solution to the problem that they have. And that's effectively what Donald Miller, How to Build a Story Brand, does. It really is a TED Talk. It's a super simple concept, but sometimes simple is like what kicks you in the butt the most. Because oftentimes business owners get so in the weeds where they're talking in a way like they're credentializing, right? Like they're just laundry listing these points, or like where they went to school, or like what they've done. And you're just like talking at someone while they're walking by. They're not getting on your bus. You have to position your bus as, I'm going to take you to New York. You want to be a singer, darling? Well, I'm going to Broadway. So if you want to come with me, this is the way to the game. This is the way to the show. And that's how you have to be thinking about your product. If you're selling face cream, well, what is their pain point? Their pain point is that they don't want to age and they're sick of being duped. They're sick of being scammed and they can't trust the skincare industry. Well, that goes back to the beginning of our podcast, where I was like, what is your point of view? What is your pain point? Why are you coming into this? What does your customer care about? Like, the best branding isn't complicated. It's simple. And to go back to the story brand concept, it's basically understanding the simple arc of the best stories that have ever existed. So what makes Harry Potter an amazing, or every single story amazing? There is a character who has a problem, who goes on a journey, who meets a guide, who is faced with, basically there's like two options. They can become evil or they can become good in some different version of those two paths. And the idea is you are a guide that's going to guide them to the best future. If they decide to go with you, they're going to become the ultimate wizard at Hogwarts, or they're going to stay as a human and rot under the stairs back in London, and they're not going to be able to live this fantastic wizard life. Like, there's basically two options. And the goal is that you're showing them that if they don't go on this journey or this guide with you, it's going to result in the worst alternative, or it's going to basically end up in the positive end. And the reason why that book is so good is that's what communicates and works for the customer. Like, when you think of the best products, Yeti keeps your drinks colder, longer, hotter, like longer. It's a product that lasts forever. It can't be destroyed, and it solves the issue of when you're out in the woods or hunting or camping, your stuff is going to stay cold and hot. Like, it's really that simple. And the brands that win are the brands that speak to their customers instead of like at them, hoping that someone's going to buy them because they're just saying how great they are.
Hey guys, I really hope you're feeling inspired from today's interview. The truth is, there's never been a better time to build an e-commerce business. And the best part is, you don't need to do it alone. That's where Foundr Plus comes in, which I'm really excited to share with you. If you are feeling stuck in your e-commerce business, lacking the confidence to really move forward, or you're worrying about making costly mistakes or how to drive your sales, Foundr Plus is here to support you. You get access to a customized learning pathway with proven frameworks from successful e-commerce founders for fast results, a supportive community. We have weekly live mentorship and workshops, and exclusive savings on startup tools, and 24/7 real human support. You can try Foundr Plus today for just $1 for 7 days so you can accelerate your business goals. Just visit foundr.com/start $trial or click the link in the description to claim your trial. All right, now let's jump back into the show. Yeah, you make a great point around stories. Like, that's something that is never, like, from a marketing standpoint, from a brand building standpoint, that's never going to go away, right? Like, if you can just continually tell good stories, and that's something that I've been thinking about that a lot this past 12 months, 24 months, and really focusing. Like, I look at my content that I'm putting up from a personal standpoint, and it's the stories. It's the stories that stick. It's when we speak to students, right? People in our community, we want to hear their stories. We want to tell their stories. When we speak to founders, we want to tell their stories, and we want to communicate that. I'm curious, you talked about consistency.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that for many? Is it just posting consistently? Like what does that mean? And how can, like, because I think it can be so overwhelming for an early stage founder to know they've got to be consistent with their brand.
Totally. Well, consistency means being consistent in literally every facet. And that's what makes going from a brand to a good brand to a great brand so exhausting and a lifetime achievement. Like, you don't go from being a brand new business to Trader Joe's or to Four Seasons in a year, right? Like, that's why consistency, when it comes to, like, and when you talk to anyone, whether it's like the biggest founders or whether it's bodybuilders or like in any area, it's about showing up every day and doing the same thing towards what you're working towards. So when I talk about consistency, in a simple form, it means ensuring that everything you do is consistent. So what I break down in the course is I talk about brand pillars. So brand pillars are the 4 Ps, and it's your purpose, it's your position, it's your personality, and it's your perception. So your position is very much your the real estate that you want to own. Like, what is that USP? What is your point of view? What is that corner of the internet that you want to be yours? Your purpose is your mission vision. It's your so what. It's why are you doing this? Why are you here? Your personality is how you outwardly want to show up. So it's like how you outwardly present yourself. And your personality is how you're inwardly perceived. So they're very close, but they're slightly different. Like, the way that I show up is very intentional for the way that I want to be perceived, but there's a nuance into basically how the two of them meet. So I make sure that I invest in high quality productions. I make sure that I invest in, I've done Korean color analysis. I went all the way to Korea to learn like what colors I wear. So I only show up on camera in like the only colors that because I've got 3 seconds. So I want, whenever people see me, to be like, she's polished, she's put together, she's expensive, right? Like I want there to be a perception to the way that I show up, but she's real. She's a disruptor, but she's knowledgeable. She's blunt. Like I come up intentionally so that you perceive me in the way that I want to be perceived. So when it goes back to the consistency, it's, you need to be obsessed with when someone designs a graphic. It's not like, so what, whatever, let's get it out there. It has to match your brand. And I talk about in the course, one of the biggest brands that I'm so critical of is like these collaborations. So the one I always use is like Gucci and North Face. So Gucci and North Face did this collaboration, and it was like, everyone's like, whoa, like Gucci and North Face, who would have thought? This is crazy. And it got buzz. But if you actually were to analyze both brands through the brand pillars, Gucci and North Face's audience, it's not a consistent pairing. Like it doesn't actually make any sense. People that wear Gucci do not wear North Face. People that buy North Face do not buy Gucci. And the reason why Gucci is in such a hole right now is because they've been making its brand death by 1,000 cuts. Your brand doesn't die by a proverbial Bud Light moment. You don't like absolutely tank and people just walk away from the brand. We're like, we're done with you. It's a slow death by a ton of wrong moves. And if you're building your brand, if you're starting out and you are posting randomly, there's no consistency, there's no focus on your pain point, your point of view, what you're trying to achieve, what that visual needs to look like, you're not going to be memorable and you're not building that brand. So you have to be, when it comes to consistency, it's hard for me to explain because everyone can have their own issue. But like when you talk about posting consistency, like for sure, like if you're trying to build a brand and you're posting once per week, that's not consistent. You're not showing up and communicating and trying to evangelize to your community in a way that's going to build it to where you want to go. So consistency in every sense of the word in every area of your business matters. I have to be consistent in how I treat my customers. I have to be consistent in how I show up on video. I have to be consistent in the way that I dress. I have to be consistent in the amount of times that I post because I'm trying to build a community that trusts me and comes to me for information. If it's not convenient for me to post for 3 weeks because my business is so busy, I'm not building a brand because I am not consistent.
Yeah, look, it makes total sense. And I'm curious, when it comes to founders starting out and having that consistent, like even look, feel, like that's crazy that you went to Korea to work out kind of your styling. I think I remember the stories of you doing that. That was really cool. Like what can founders do when it comes to just working that out?
And that's where you have to really understand your brand because the internet is the most incredible place. Like you need to develop. So in the course, I give you all of the stuff to do your full brand core. So from beginning to end, going through all of the pieces for mapping out your brand. Once you have that, this is where ChatGPT is your friend. Based on all of the parameters of my brand core, what are the best businesses for me to look at, to study for a 10 by 10 comparison, for me to analyze to develop a marketing and branding strategy, for me to ensure that my visuals are consistent. This is where you can go into the research phase because if you're a startup lemonade stand, it's not good for you to be studying Rode and what they're doing on socials because they're at a different place, they've got a different budget. So I'm not asking for you to proverbially fly to Korea to do your Korean color analysis, but I'm asking for you to do your research so that you have the autonomy to understand what's needed for your brand. If you're just hopeless and you're like, I don't know what to do with where AI is, with where social media is, with where YouTube is, with where Foundr is, you're not going to be able to compete. So you need to get into the space because someone that's launching a clean bamboo underwear line needs to do a very different brand analysis than someone that's dropping a viral sour to spicy candy on TikTok, right? Like those are very different strategies. One is like super shocking, in your face, aggressive. The other one is very education focused, comparing why it's better, what makes it more, like they're very different strategies. And that's probably the best thing for me to underscore simply is that what makes a brand good is that it uniquely and strongly understands itself. And branding is an exercise of defining a thing that is soul-like, that owns real estate in somebody's mind, but it doesn't tangibly exist. And that's why when you said, if I was to ask 1,000 people, what is a brand? Why I get 1,000 different answers is because a brand is, it's everything and it's nothing all at one time. Like, what is Apple? Like, is Apple my phone, or is it the way that it makes me feel? And that's like what it makes the branding so complicated, is that Apple's branding is so good because it really understands Apple's brand. So if you want to do good at branding, you have to go through the work to really understand your brand. And that's why this is like esoteric and vague. It's because we're trying to create a thing that's going to live in society as part of the zeitgeist, but it doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, it's how it makes you feel. Right, that's what really, really, really resonates with me. Like, how does that brand make you feel? Does it what emotions does it stimulate, and how can you build a relationship with people at scale through your brand? Like, that's what all business is, right? And I'm curious around design and visual. Talk to me around visuals. Like, how important is it, the positioning, brand visuals, logo, color type? Like, how much of it matters, how much of it doesn't?
It matters to a point. So branding and visuals, like, let's not get it twisted. Like, they really matter, but it's not everything. And I think it's getting to a point where it's easy to manufacture something that looks good. It's harder to elicit something that makes people feel. And I think there's been a really big pivot in the last 2 to 3 years with AI, right? Like, the ability for AI for like places like Creative Market and templates on Squarespace and Shopify that like come out of the gate looking so beautiful and so they're just, for what you can get access to now from a UI UX is like, it's crazy. And so that's the problem, is that I don't want to speak to, like, it can't be like janky, like it needs to look professional. Like, there's like a minimum standard, if you want to be successful. But then the problem is, I see a lot of brands that look good but have no weight or meaning, right? And so branding is substantive. Like, a good brand, it means more than just the visuals. And that's why it's important to think in terms of, social media is about building a community, and building a community indirectly drives business. So the whole idea of understanding that your visuals and ways something looks gets you to a point, but then you actually have to keep people engaged. And that's why that bus metaphor is so good. Like, your bus has to look like it's not going to kidnap you and it's taking you to like a back alley, and it's going to, like, people aren't jumping on that bus. People aren't even going to decide to like look at the bus. So that's why that metaphor, I want you to keep coming back to, if I'm on a bus, does my bus look good enough? Okay, now my bus looks good enough, but how do I get people to be on the bus and stay on the bus? If you keep thinking in those simple terms, even when it comes to my content, like, I can think of a really good idea, but if it's not keeping people on my bus, it's not worth me doing it. So it has to be like valuable to keeping people engaged, because we are in such an attention deficit. Like, it's crazy. Like, if you post 3 bad or 4 bad or 5 bad videos, you can be suppressed by the algorithm, because all that Instagram and TikTok care about is keeping you on the platform longer so they can sell more ads. So if you just start putting out, and that's why this piece on community is so important and value is so important, because it doesn't matter how nice your logo is. If you're putting out meaningless, crappy content, you're going to get suppressed by the algorithm, and you're not going to be reaching your audience.
Yeah, no, all makes sense, aligned. I'm curious. I'd love to just delve a little deeper on the visual identity piece, because sometimes I see people's brand and or this business, and you go and it's a really tough one, because they don't have an eye for design, right? Like, they just don't. And I'm not saying I do, but what I will say is, from experience, there's a reason, all these top startups, top companies, they always double down on design. Like they always do a rebrand, or they do like they're constantly doing, not constantly, but they're every now and then doing rebrands. They are constantly like, you look at any company that's raised like a Series A, oftentimes a big part of it is a rebrand, and they double down with like the best design firms, because these VCs and really just like smart business people, they know all these top companies in Silicon Valley, right? All these top tech startups, they have awesome branding because they know it builds trust and it's worth its weight in gold, right? But it's something that you don't have to, from my experience, you don't have to do it with like a crazy budget. Like you can build a great brand visually now with AI, with the power of these online platforms like Behance or Dribbble, finding just finding amazing, talented designers in all sorts of places around the world that can really help you at a cost affordable rate. But yeah, I just want to double down with you on like, it's just like a thing that I think is it is important. It's not everything, but yeah, I think it's something that is a low hanging fruit.
It really is. But the piece that's a bit complicated depending on where people are at is it's a cost of doing business to have a good looking brand. Like it's unexcusable to not have visually a strong brand with everything you said, like Upwork, Fiverr, Behance, Dribbble. Like you can really access at a price that has never been accessible to business owners in the history, like ever, for that level of expertise in design to have a strong design. It's difficult though when you say like, I don't have an eye, because I also do feel too that the marketing is kind of like bookkeeping or like where it's hard to trust the person in front of you. Like expertise is loosely handed. So that's the only hard part to it. And that's why I triple down on, you have to study your brand core and you have to know your audience, or you have to make an investment with the right player, because it does matter so much. And there's such a variance in what's out there. So you either have to do the work to get to know it better, or spend the money to ensure that it's done by someone at a level that you can trust. Because that's the other thing too, is that but then the third piece to this is a lot of brands, you can build a community by pain points and by showing up and by being vulnerable and telling a story, and do really well through grassroots guerrilla efforts, because people want to connect with people. So you could have a fantastic product and you could worry less on the packaging, because VCs don't care about the personality, they don't care about the person, right? Like I have a client that does 12 million per month on TikTok, and her branding is good. It's not through the roof, but it's that she's using TikTok to sell products at a low price point. So it's just, there's more options to it as only packaging, because they're looking for price point valuation, and just as a space for you to know that brand can exist through story and through understanding the fundamentals of pain point and what your target customer wants.
Love it. Awesome. So let's switch gears. You do a lot of audits and brand fixes. That's a big piece of your company.
Yes.
I'm curious, what's the most common thing that you find that founders completely miss?
That they are trying very hard at socials, but it is a copy and paste, very aesthetic grid that says, means, and does nothing for their target customer. So the biggest issue I face is people who are trying very hard, but aren't hyper focused on their brand. So if I was to swap their handle with another handle in their same space, like jewelry is a big one, they often look exactly the same, like grid to grid. And they're not focused on understanding that social media has changed to become a secondary website. So they're not scannable, they're not snackable, they're not answering the who, what, where, why, and how. Like basically the question I want you to ask yourself is, if you were to go to your page right now, I call this the Instagram test. If you were to go to your Instagram page right now and look at the 9 top like squares, the 3, 3, 3 on your page, could a cold lead tell you who you are, what you do, why you're the best product or service for the job, and how they can like hire you or access your product? If you can't say yes to all 4 of these questions, you have a brand problem on socials. And that's often the biggest issue I see, is that they're not using socials in a way to connect and to soft sell for what they do, which is what people use social media for, is to verify.
Yeah. I love what you said around it's your second website. That is spot on. Like when somebody, like if I tell my girlfriend I'm interviewing this person, she goes to the brand. Yeah, goes to the brand's Instagram, right? Doesn't even go to the website, and then judges by how many followers, and followers mean nothing, right? This is coming from us. We have over 4 million followers just on Instagram alone. Like it means nothing, right? Like it's all about the engagement. It's all about like all the stuff we're talking about throughout this podcast.
And the reason why it's also important too is people don't follow. So I get a lot of questions on like ROI for social media, right? Because people are spending money on agencies or on photo shoots or whatever, right? Time and money. And they're like, I haven't gotten a single business or a single sale off of Instagram. But the question is, what business have you lost because you don't stand up to the verification? And that's the thing is like, whenever I'm giving big talks and it's part of my keynote, I always ask this and I go, how many of you here, when I get to this point in the keynote, I'm like, how many of you here have searched me up with me speaking? Like to verify that I know what I'm talking about and I should be in front of you on this subject. And almost the entire room's hand goes up. And I say, how many of you looked on Instagram first? And all of their hands stay up. And I go, how many of you then went to my website? Maybe 10 hands stay up. And it's always like, it's just like these, like the rogue people in the back. They're like, yeah, maybe I went to your website because I'm bored. I'm in the back. It's always Instagram. And I'm saying, and I at the same time, I go, how many of you decided to follow me? And it's not that I'm asking for you to follow me. It's that you don't feel compelled because that's how you verify. We go on Instagram to look at restaurants before we go to book the restaurant. We don't follow them. We don't like their posts. But if their Instagram doesn't look good, we're not going to book there. We're going to go somewhere else. And if their Instagram looks great, we're going to book there. We're not going to say we found you on Instagram because we didn't find you on Instagram. We just searched you on Instagram to see if we decided if we wanted to go.
Yeah, and it's a subconscious thing. Like you're not even consciously doing it. Like it's very subconscious.
No, I watch people all the time where they'll be like, where did you get that bag? And I'm like, oh, I got it wherever. And I'm like watching them like while we're doing something, they're like searching it up on Instagram. They'll like do the 2 to 3 point pass. They like lock their phone and they're like, and they're making a decision. So that's why it's when we talk about community, when we talk about consistency, when we talk about brand, like that's why all of these things, they matter so much, but they're going to mean very different things to each of your businesses and where you are in the journey.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, Camille, I could talk to you all day. We have to work towards wrapping up. I'm going to ask a couple last questions.
Okay.
What's one non-negotiable branding principle that you'd give to any founder starting today?
Non-negotiable branding principle for founders starting today. To me, the non-negotiable is having organic socials. So it's looking at lo-fi instead of hi-fi. Lo-fi is iPhone shot content. Hi-fi is like high fidelity photo shoots, like super well placed. There is a role for both, but we don't go on socials to be sold to. So understanding that organic role of socials is truly how you scale. The brands that are hyper focused on ads alone, they're suppressed by the algorithm. Like nobody goes on socials to be like shown your billboard, right? Like you have to give value. So value-based organic socials is the non-negotiable because if you're an e-com, you will not scale if you don't understand organic socials. There's a role for ads, but there's a role for really being organic, looking more legitimate, leaning into more things like UGC or EGC, user-generated content, employee-generated content. You need to show a humanness to your brand to win today.
Couldn't agree more. With AI, saturated content, it's easier than ever to create content. It's easier than ever to start a Shopify brand or store. How do you think branding is going to evolve over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think it's going to be scary, and I think all of the worst things that we can think about are going to be real. Like we're already seeing it. There's so many lawsuits of creators and celebrities being used without in podcasts that never existed, talking about how much they love this product that they've never used or never heard of. You're seeing so many brands pop up with a landing page, a 40% off PDP with these like ads of famous people like using the product and then like disappearing after 2 weeks. I think all of that's coming faster than we think. But I think that at the end of the day, we are a world filled with a ton of humans. Humans are going to want to buy from humans. The best way to start connecting with humans is to start now, because like you said, you wish you started 10 years ago. For those who haven't started now, you're going to regret if you don't start now 10 years from now. So you have to embrace what we can't change, but you have to get ahead of it because the change is here. Like AI is bigger than the printing press. We've never seen anything like this in human existence. And as long as humans are still running the world, humans are going to want to buy from humans. So you can't ignore what you could ignore in the past because bluntly the world has changed.
Yeah. And it's easier than ever to create content. It's getting way more noisy. So the sooner you start, the better. Well, look, thank you so much, Camille. There you have it, guys. This was a next level branding masterclass in the past hour. If you even just got a small fraction of value, you have to enroll in Camille's platform. If you've got a small fraction of value, you have to enroll in Camille's incredible program on the Foundr Plus platform. It will be going live very, very, very soon. It's an amazing program. Branding comes up a lot. If you want to create an incredible symphony that stands out, that gets heard, gets listened to, you've got to go to this program. All right. Thank you so much, Camille.
Thank you for having me.
Hey guys, if you love this episode, you've got to check out my interview with Davey Fogarty on how he finds trends in undercapitalized markets and turns them into multi-million-dollar businesses.
I'm generally looking for trends globally. We find trends that haven't been kind of capitalized in certain markets or in certain marketing channels.
Yes.
And then we also obviously add our flair to it. You need to differentiate your product.